On the threshold of the gate of a historic mansion outside the city of Boston, Rachel stopped wearily. His grandfather had inherited the manor for him, but he had wanted to think about it for a few days before deciding to accept this inheritance. The manor had been abandoned for many years, and its walls still kept family secrets. Rachel entered the mansion and drifted into the silence and emptiness under the influence of the night. When he went to one of the rooms, an old portrait hanging on the wall attracted his attention. The portrait showed a family member of his grandfather many generations ago. His eyes met Rachel's, and it seemed as if he was trying to communicate with her. While he was examining the portrait, he heard a strange noise. He walked slowly towards a strange light source coming from the corner of the room. The source of the light, he realized, opened a secret passage under an old booklet. Although he could not know whether his grandfather knew about this secret passage, he boldly entered it. The passage led to an old library. Wandering among the shelves full of dusty books, he stopped on a decalogue. The book was an old hardcover book with the inscription, "Family Secrets." When Rachel opened the book, she began to learn the secrets that her family had kept for a long time. These secrets explained the strange rituals and secret rituals that the inhabitants of the manor had performed in the past. He was also describing some of the curses from the family's past. Rachel wanted to counteract the dark nature of these secrets, but during this time she realized that something had changed. He began to hear strange noises inside the mansion. Shadows looking like ghosts of the Wrights were circling around them and creeping after Rachel. The lights suddenly started flashing, and strange symbols were engraved on the walls. Rachel began to confront the family's past, and at the same time tried to destroy this dark legacy. However, as the family tried to solve their secrets, the manor became even darker and more menacing. Rachel is attacked by ghosts, and the dark forces of secrets begin to squeeze her. But he bravely continued to fight. Finally, Rachel came across a large mirror that represented the family's past. When he looked in the mirror, he encountered the faces of the ghosts of his family. But this time, family members were talking to him, helping him. Rachel managed to solve the family secrets and went on a path to make up for the mistakes the family had made in the past. After that dark night, Rachel confronted the manor's past and redirected her family's legacy towards a brighter future. The manor house is no longer silent, but this silence was no longer terrible silence, but hopeful silence. Willowdale, a small American town, was buried in the darkness of night. The town was a quiet and peaceful place, but tonight it was going to turn into a horror story. Sarah, a young woman, had decided to live in this town, and this evening was the first night back from her sister's wedding. Sarah, when she returned to her house, the silence caught her attention. Normally, there would still be some life in the town at that hour, but tonight dead silence reigned. When he stepped through the entrance door, he noticed that his sister and her housemates were not present. Everything seemed normal, but something was missing. He went into the room and turned on the TV, but there was no broadcast. He tried the radio, the same result. Sarah took out her cell phone, but she couldn't get any signal. In fear, she locked the door and started checking the charge of her phone, but her phone was dead. Suddenly, he saw a strange reflection on the window panes. When he looked out of the window, he noticed that there were no stars in the sky. Neither the moon nor the stars were visible. For a moment, there was a fearful silence. Sarah, going to the window and looking at the sky, felt that something was wrong in the town. He began to listen to strange sounds that he thought came from outside. At first, it seemed to be coming from a distance, but later he realized that it was getting closer. The sounds were filled with all kinds of fears and terrors, moans, screams, strange wild animal sounds. Sarah was alone in this silent town, covered with terrible sounds. Suddenly, he felt a strange presence inside the house. He felt something looking at him, his breath on his neck. When he turned quickly, he could not see anything. He just encountered terrible silence. That feeling, however, shook him. The strange noises outside were still going on, and now Sarah herself was trapped in this strange silence. He couldn't communicate with anyone. His phone was dead. and neither were the others in the house. Sarah, walking through the town, tried to understand this silence and horror, but it made every step more terrible. Finally, he understood the reason for the horror in the town. Some kind of alien entity had taken over the town. This being seemed to absorb the sounds, lights, and tracks of people. Sarah tried to fight this presence in silence, but everything was like a challenging nightmare. Silence continued to reign in the town, and Sarah could not solve this mystery. No one returned, and the town remained a silent ghost town. Sarah was left alone with her silence and terror, and was doomed to live in terrible silence. Emily, a young woman living in Los Angeles, decided to spend the night at her house alone after her friends refused her an offer to go out. The house was an old shanty, and he was on his own in the neighborhood. That night, he got up at 3 a.m. and wanted to go to the bathroom. When he awoke, silence reigned, and the house was surrounded by darkness. Emily left the bedroom to go to the toilet and walked quietly along the hallway. He wanted to turn on the light, but he had forgotten the keychain on the table. When he reached the toilet door, he suddenly heard a strange sound from inside the toilet. The sound was like something being whisked rapidly through water. When he carefully opened the door, he saw that the toilet's water was still fluctuating. It was as if something had entered him. Emily plucked up courage to take it off and quickly withdrew her hand, which she dipped in the water. But the thing he struck with his hand disappeared before he could understand what it was, nor what it was. Nervously, he returned to his bed again and tried to sleep, but the incident did not leave him alone. After a while, he felt a strange vibration in his bed. He felt something climbing towards him from under the duvet on him. Her eyes opened with great fear, and she slowly pulled back the quilt, but he could see nothing. In fear, she jumped out of bed and ran out of the room, but she heard strange noises inside the house. The doors were slamming, the window curtains were coming down, and the house seemed to come alive. Suddenly, he heard a high-pitched scream from inside the house. This scream seemed to be part of what was going on in the house. Emily ran across the street and asked her neighbors for help. Everything had returned to normal in the house when the police arrived. There was no sign, no indication. Emily did not understand what happened that night, but from that day on, she decided never to be alone in that old shanty house. Those eerie hours he spent at home remained a night that he would never forget her again.